Greetings. It's been a minute. So, 10mm pistol is a weapon I neglected in my first Fallout Guns video. The reason why is because I didn't really recognize it as anything of note, because I thought that the designs seen throughout the games were sort of more of an artistic change than any sort of lore change. And I didn't really notice that until the show. I saw there were two different designs of the 10mm pistol from two different Fallout games coexisting. This led me down a slight rabbit hole that I will be talking about today. The 10mm pistols seen throughout the Fallout series are an iconic part of the series, and in my opinion, an interesting trope I see in a lot of science fiction. What I mean by that is a lot of science fiction uses their pistols as a way to show the progression of technology. Often they're large, clunky, or have lights on them, or some kind of futuristic look to them. A lot of them have specialty ammunition or fire a certain unconventional ammunition that you wouldn't have realistically in a pistol nowadays, with the lore being that future technology allows that to be manageable for a human hand. It's kind of an interesting trope that, I see in things like Blade Runner or Warhammer, where weapons and especially pistols are shown as like these massive, almost magnums, but in a pistol-like format more than a, regular magnum. The 10mm pistol is sort of a perfect introduction to the world of Fallout in terms of its weapons, with the 10mm pistol being the first firearm the player gets in almost every game in the series. But what's interesting here is that there are 3, maybe 4 canon models for the 10mm pistol we see throughout Fallout. Of course, that would make sense. It's just a caliber of ammunition being put into a pistol, so it wouldn't be odd to have more than one model made by different manufacturers and all that stuff. But it's their implementation within the games that make it a little confusing in terms of what is for what purpose in the pre- and post-war worlds. So let's start with the first gun you ever get in any Fallout game, with the Colt 6520 pistol. Is the 10mm pistol introduced in Fallout 1 and 2, and is later reintroduced as Creation Club content in Fallout 4, and appears in the TV show. Notably, the pistol has a revolving action seen on the model while being described as being mag-fed. This is shown with better fidelity in Fallout 4, where you can see the pistol be loaded with a magazine, though you don't see the revolving action move until we get to the TV show, when it's fired and we see the revolving action move. Obviously, I'd assume that in Fallout 4, the Creation Club content, is obviously a little clunky, and it's made by community members and all that stuff. So I wouldn't really say that it's canon, that it doesn't move. I mean, it might not even appear canonly within Fallout 4 to begin with, if you count the consideration that Creation Club content is often non-canon. Though that is a topic I feel like I should discuss in a later video. A magazine-fed pistol with a revolving action isn't necessarily fictional. There are real models of it. They are just so strange and arguably hard to use or prone to jamming that they don't really get standardized. Obviously, this helps lead into the science fiction aspect of the pistol, with the technology of the somewhat distant future being advanced enough that we can possibly have a better revolving action mag-fed pistol. The reason why the Colt is both mag-fed and has a revolving action is because of a weird miscommunication between artists and writers in the first Fallout. This is something detailed in a lot of behind-the-scenes content made by the creators of Fallout 1, but it seems like the artists intended for this to be some sort of automatic revolver, while the writers thought of a conventional pistol design when they were writing the story for it. So it led to this weird hodgepodge of a revolving actioned pistol with a magazine-fed, feeding system. Again, it's not unrealistic, it's just strange, and kind of cool when you think about it. I do believe that these mismatched systems do lead to its description of it being a very well-suited pistol for desert environments, something that is said in Fallout 1 and 2, as well as the fact that it was so commonplace / parts are so easy to replace through other means that manufacturing and upkeep of this weapon continued well on into the post-war world. It's kind of like a AK in the real world, but in Fallout. Just so adept at surviving that it persists in a nuclear apocalypse. Obviously, a lot of other guns do that too, but I think this gun being described as this kind of helps understand why we see the Colt a lot in Fallout 1 and 2, and not really anywhere else, maybe, is that in this area, maybe it was a very preferred weapon because of its resistance to desert environments. Though, that does lead a weird inconsistency with Fallout New Vegas, which I'll get to. In Fallout 4, it's sort of just like a high damage, more rare version of a 10mm pistol that's seen in that game without a lot of the customization options that you have in that game as well. Nothing strange with that. In the show, the only real interesting aspect of it is sort of its implementation within the military of the Brotherhood of Steel of that time. It seems like it's some sort of scribe, primary / possibly sidearm. The only time we see the Colt in the series is used by a scribe. So presumably that's what its purpose is. But the point I'm trying to say here is that I believe that the Brotherhood of Steel kind of co-opted the manufacturing and the already existing supply of the Colt seen from Fallout 1 and 2 and kind of just made it their standardized arm. Obviously people can still have it, but it's not going to be as common as it was in Fallout 1 and 2 because of the sort of new apocalyptic state of the world and the introduction of other firearms into the area through travel.
But anyways,
one of the weirdest things about this is that this gun is said to be very well suited for desert environments, which is weird that it doesn't appear in Fallout New Vegas, and instead
we get another 10mm pistol.
So without further ado, let's move on to the next topic and talk about the
N99 is the 10mm pistol that we see in Fallout 3 and New Vegas.
Is the standard pistol of the US military by the time the bombs fell. It's also described as being very resilient, which leads to its abundance in post-war America, just like the Colt.
The gun retains a blocky shape, a futuristic shared with the Colt, but now with a slide action instead of a revolving action. It's still mag-fed though, and the slide itself has heavy Desert Eagle motifs. In fact, there is concept art for an early version of the N99 that is just a Desert Eagle with Fallout-style lines on it.
Interestingly, the Deagle exists in the Fallout world, but gun sharing aesthetical designs isn't uncommon in real world, thus it would not be uncommon in Fallout, making it not that important. I just wanted to mention it because I will talk about the Deagle in Fallout 2 at some point.
Now, the existence of both the Colt and the N99 alone are not really issues. Having multiple firearms that shoot the same caliber of ammunition isn't very strange. It's more so the implementation of these guns within the 4 games they are featured in that personally raise a question or two. Most notably, if the N99 is the standard military pistol before the bombs fall, then why do we not see it in California? As well as, why is the Colt the standard Vault-Tec pistol in California while in DC and presumably Nevada it is the N99? And this pertains to a overall theory I've been crafting about pre-war American military's organization tactics, with one of them being the whole West Coast idea that I had in my first Fallout Guns video when I talked about the Watts laser rifle, and that is that on the West Coast, it's easy to assume that most likely the military's armaments might be a little different because they want to have the most high-tech and most destructive weapons right on the front lines of any military invasion, while other locations just get advanced weaponry like DC. In this theory, it would be that DC and Nevada, because of Nevada's proximity to the West Coast, would get sort of the best of the best when it comes to ballistic weaponry and the most recent adapted weaponry possible, while the West Coast directly, as in California, would get new or more dangerous laser weapons like the Watts or energy pistols we see in Fallout 1 and 2. Considering that those weapons are not really seen anywhere else, it might mean that, they are really only given to California. And considering that Vault-Tec is most likely part of the American military in some way, or at least has, their hands in it, they probably just get their arms from the military.
I think the only thing that really feels like a real missed opportunity here is the Courier Stash DLC, which is just a amalgamation of 3 different pre-order DLCs you can get. One of them being a Fallout 2 themed bundle with the Vault Canteen and the armored jumpsuit. And it comes with a 10mm pistol. It's called the Weathered 10mm pistol. I believe it's meant to be the 10mm pistol used by the player character in either Fallout 1 or 2. Though I'm not entirely sure what its intent was. But obviously it's not, because it's not a Colt, it's an N99. That could have been a cool way to reintroduce the Colt, but again, it's not really that much of a bother. Now we move on to the pistol seen in Fallout 4 and 76, which does not have a canon name, or really any lore, though it is called the 10mm combat pistol by a Brotherhood of Steel terminal in Fallout 4, but that's not really a name. I think that's just a classification for it. The most notable thing about the pistol is its modability. It's capable of being modded to be fully automatic, something that no other 10mm pistol is capable of so far. This is evident with the Colt's reintroduction in Fallout 4 through the Creation Club, as when you mod that pistol, you are unable to make it fully automatic. This one feature led me to come up with a theory on what the model for this 10mm pistol could be, and I believe it's the N80. Now, I didn't talk about it in the previous segment, but the N80 is a weapon that was described in the N99's description for Fallout 3, and that is that it was the pre-war standardized military pistol before the N99 phased it out.
My main evidence is the aesthetic similarities between the two pistols. The slide by default on the F4 pistol is very similar to the N99, and you can modify the Fallout 4 pistol to look like an N99 with barrel mods and attachments. And I think the description of the N80 helps us understand why we see the Fallout 4 and 76 pistol and not the N99 in these areas. And what I mean by that is that the description for the N99 says it replaces the N80. And while obviously it replaced it in places like Nevada and DC, there is a high possibility that because of resource allocation and other limitations, the N80 was kept in areas like Boston or West Virginia that are not considered high priority areas by the US government and therefore did not receive these firearms. Obviously, they probably would have at some point if the bombs didn't fall and the world ended. But now we're in the state that we see in the games where in Fallout 4 and 76, the N99 does not exist anywhere in the world. And instead we see this new pistol that has no in-game description yet. So my theory is that it's the N80 and that it didn't get phased out in those areas yet. That's why we still see it. As for why we see this pistol in the Fallout TV show, I believe it's because of the crossover between the West Coast and East Coast chapters of the Brotherhood of Steel. I'd assume that they would have brought over this pistol, and once they decided on the Colt being the designated sidearm, they got rid of it by either trashing it or trading it with other factions and wastelanders. Alternatively, the pistol's appearance could just be because if it's the N80, it was still seen sparingly in California. We just didn't see it on our adventures as the Vault Dweller or the Chosen One. Whichever way you go, I feel like both work, but I'd rather stick with the East Coast bringing it over, as that's also why I believe we see the assault rifle from Fallout 4 and 76 in this show as well.
So I decided to dedicate the rest of this video to a few other weapons that use 10mm ammo, because I think it'll be a good idea to talk about them here. So let's talk about another 10mm pistol, the Chinese pistol, also known as the Shang-Chi Type 17 pistol. It's a pistol that uses 10mm ammunition, obviously,
but interestingly, it's modeled after the Mauser,
which is strange considering the Mauser is a German weapon, and the Chinese are known to use Soviet weapons like the AK,
known as the Chinese assault rifle. What's interesting here is that the Mauser has been seen before in Fallout, with it appearing in Fallout 1 and 2 as a 9mm pistol, named the Mauser.
Presumably, the Chinese created a new model of the Mauser, called the Shang-Chi Type 17, and updated it to shoot 10mm as one of their main modifications, though not a lot of lore is stated about the Mauser seen in Fallout 1 and 2 in comparison to the Shang-Chi Type 17. Just like how the Chinese assault rifle is an AK, but not the only AK seen in Fallout. This is a Mauser, but not the only Mauser seen in Fallout. And another pistol we're going to talk about is the Deliverer, which is based off of a PPK, another German pistol. There's not really any more lore for this gun. It seems like it's been modified by the one person we've seen use it, or they did use it before they die and we get it off their body. Regardless, it's a unique weapon seen in Fallout 4 once, and that's it. It's unique, as in it's cool. I like that it shoots 10mm. It helps show that the 10mm has become a very standardized ammunition, that even older models are being outfitted to shoot that type of ammunition. Regardless, not that important to talk about anymore. So we're finally moving off pistols here, and we're going to talk about two SMGs that I really want to talk about. With the first one being the 10mm SMG, also known as the H&K MP9. This weapon is seen in Fallout 1 and 2, and some kind of other version is seen in Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 76. The reason why I'm putting this separation here is because the wiki for the Fallout 1 and 2 10mm pistol, which is the H&K MP9, states that the Fallout 3 version is not the same. I don't see any evidence for this. I don't know why they say this. I'm assuming it's because Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and 76 for that matter, don't really have any lore for the weapon. So maybe they're assuming that it's a different model, but I think that they are the same model, just with some slight aesthetic differences, like how any gun would have, different barrels or different grips or different stocks you can put on it. The one we see in Fallout 3 in New Vegas looks a little different because of slight body mods done to it. The most interesting aspect of this gun to me is its name. The fact that it's an H&K model gun is very notable to me, not only because it's using the MP9 name, which is already a real-world gun, but it's not the same between Fallout and the real world, but because of the other 10mm SMG we see in Fallout, and that is the P90. Yeah, you heard that right. There is a P90 in Fallout. It's in Fallout 2, and it's called the H&K P90C. I know if you know anything about this gun, you are raising questions, so let's get into it. In the real world, the P90 is a FN Herschel designed weapon. The reason why it's weird that H&K is the manufacturer of at least this model of the weapon in the Fallout world is because the P90 was in fact the competitor to H&K's MP7. They both were fighting for NATO standardization at the time, and in fact the P90 would have been the standardized SMG of NATO if it weren't for H&K being a German company and Germany shoving their weight around in the politics of NATO to prevent the P90 from becoming standardized. There are many theories to be made about this, going from, H&K either bought out FN Herschel or FN Herschel never existed. Maybe even Germany took over Belgium, maybe in like World War II or something like that, and they kept it post World War II. Regardless, I will be making a video about the P90C eventually.
Well, what's interesting for the sake of this video is that both of these guns are H&K model SMGs that shoot 10mm ammo. I just thought I'd mention it.
Something else I wanted to say about the 10mm SMG is that it's not in Fallout 4. I believe it's because they introduced the ability to mod the pistol to shoot fully automatic, so they thought that having an SMG would be kind of pointless. Though it does return in Fallout 76, presumably for Reddit Karma. Just a few opinions I want to get out that I feel are notable before moving on to a conclusion. For starters, the Tunnel Snakes Creation Club pack is a pack that introduces the classic Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 pistol. This is strange because the Tunnel Snakes is a Fallout 3 thing, and the Colt is a Fallout 1 and 2 pistol, only seen in those games until reintroduced in this Creation Club pack. So why not bring the N99 from Fallout 3 in here instead and make it like some nostalgia bait for Fallout 3? On that topic, I believe that Fallout 4 was the only game the prop design team and maybe the writers used when choosing what weapons to add into the TV show. And the reason why I believe this is because we see, of course, the Fallout 1 and 2 pistol along with the Fallout 4 and 76 pistol, which both are in Fallout 4. But we also don't see the 10mm SMG, which would make sense to see in this area, possibly because they didn't see it in the game, so they didn't add it in. Obviously, there are some original weapons that are not in Fallout 4, but those are original. I think any weapon that is from the Fallout series appears in Fallout 4 in some facet. At least weapons that get like full screen time. When doing research, there are background scenes of weapons like AKs and stuff like that I've seen that might be possible references to other guns seen in the Fallout series, but I'll talk about that at a later date. So, my theory so far. The Colt we've seen in Fallout 1, 2, and, kind of 4, as well as the TV show, was never a standardized military weapon. Though they do seem to be the standard weapon of Vault-Tec, only in California though. Long after the war, and before 2296, the Colt 6520 becomes adapted as the scribe sidearm for the Brotherhood of Steel. Meanwhile, the N99, another 10mm pistol, is the standard military firearm before the bombs fell. Seen in the Mojave and Capital Wastelands, while these were supposed to be the standard firearm, time and budget restraints led to them being only distributed in high-priority locations, like active war zones, the West Coast, and the U.S. Capitol. Elsewhere, the previous model, the N80, which was slowly being phased out, was still widely used due to the military locations in those areas not getting the N99 yet. As well as that, I believe that Vault-Tec's standardization for what pistol is in use where is based on sort of a similar system. It is easy to assume that Vault-Tec is in some sort of cahoots with the military, meaning that they would get the standard military pistol of the area of whatever vault is there. Why the Colt is in California then is probably because, like I said before, the high priority weapons like laser pistols and stuff like that were used by the military in that area, at least according to my theory, would most likely not be beneficial to use in a vault environment, and ballistics was the more preferred option, so they just went with the Colt, which was already in circulation as a civilian firearm at that time. I feel like this lines up pretty well with how we see the distribution of the firearms in the US based on how they are seen in the games. It helps show just how messy America was due to resource shortages caused by their own hubris, and how once we get to a war state, that messiness becomes even worse, and we get an overcomplicated map of weapons spread out across the US, with different ones being standardized in different areas due to different reasons. Alright, this is the post video segment where I talk about what's going on. If you can tell, I have not uploaded in over a year. It's been about a year and a half, I think, at this point. And what I mean by that is I haven't uploaded a main video. I've uploaded plenty of slop shorts, which I will continue to do, mind you. But the more passionate long-form videos, I've made several, but I haven't released them because over time, when I don't have a video out in a while, I kind of think the next one needs to be something big, right? I have a fully finished 12.7mm SMG video finished that I was going to release on December 7th of last year, sort of, because 12.7, but I didn't finish it. So the several videos that I have on back burner that are basically done will be out sometime within the next few months. I will adapt them to make them more relevant to modern topics and all that. But for the most part, you will be seeing more from me more frequently very soon. The future of what I want to be doing as a whole will be talked about later on. But just know that I'm not stopping any kind of long form content about Fallout guns, but I do want to kind of branch out into more topics. If you see on my channel, I have Rainbow Six topics as well as Mass Effect topics, and in fact, my first technically big video was a Mass Effect video. Obviously, not as big as my Fallout guns video, but that's kind of a thing. In that vein, why I talk about only the firearms of Fallout is not because it was the thing I got big off of. It's because when it comes to Fallout lore, that's really one of the things I have the most passion about. Regardless, that's all, folks. And I'll see you next time. John out. Get it? You guys get it? I think that was pretty funny, if I'm being honest.